Welcome to the Ultimate Gen X Retirement Crisis Guide. I've combined here my entire three-part series on the biggest financial topic facing our generation today. And it's all together in one uninterrupted 35-minute deep dive. I'm covering everything: how we got left behind, the biggest mistakes that we're making today, and the 5 real dangers that we need to watch out for. This is not a victim mentality. This is a powerful lesson on what we've endured and how to be savvy enough to navigate today and tomorrow. So settle in and let's get started. Gen X was the guinea pig for the modern day retirement system. And while some of us are doing just fine, many of us were put at a disadvantage right from the start. This is part 1 in a 2-part series, and today I'm going to paint a picture of what it was like for Gen Xers to launch into adulthood. In the next video, I will cover how Gen X is sabotaging their own retirements today. So exactly how did we get left behind? Let's start with the biggest shift Gen X faced: the rise of the 401k. Okay, so the first point I want to make is that we were truly pioneers of the 401k revolution. I started my first part-time job in 1983, and that was with Kmart. Remember them? Now that's when I first started hearing about some sort of retirement savings plan. I'm not even sure it was called a 401k, in the circles that I was traveling in. And I'll just say that the HR department, they didn't know much about it. I mean, it was brand new to everyone at that time. All I was told was to put money in it, and you're not supposed to take it out until you retire or quit. And this is all when I was 17 years old. Now, fast forward, I'm almost 30 years old. I changed employers. What did I do with the 401k from my previous employer? Well, I cashed it out. So I start with this new employer, and they're like, here you go. Here's a form. Fill it out. You've got 90 days, and we'll enroll you in our 401k. That was about the gist of it. There was no automatic enrollment. You had to opt in. There were no target date funds. Now, I share this story because I feel like it has to be a common one. Unless you worked for a huge company that took an interest in educating their employees about financial education, or maybe you worked for a financial business, who were we supposed to ask about this? Who were we supposed to go to for our questions? There was no internet. Couldn't ask my parents about it. They'd never heard of a 401k before. My dad worked for a company that would supply him with a pension in his retirement. He need not worry about these things. So Gen X was thrown into this new system without much guidance at all. And by the time many of us figured it out, we'd already lost valuable saving years. Okay, point number 2, the tax trap. Were we sucker punched? Now, we thought we were doing everything right, maxing out our 401ks, but no one told us about the massive tax bill that would be waiting for us when we retired. That $500,000 401k balance is not really $500,000. It's whatever's left after the IRS takes its cut. Now, if you're in the 12% tax bracket, you're already down to $440,000. But what if tax rates go up? You're losing even more. Now, younger generations have Roth IRAs and even Roth 401ks to balance out their pre-tax and post-tax savings. But for most of our working years, these options were not available. We had one option, an option where all the kinks hadn't been worked out yet. Okay, point number 3 that I want to make is the credit card trap. The moment I stepped on my college campus in 1985, I was pre-approved for a brand new Discover card. Now, I was making around $5,000 a year working part-time at Kmart. This brand new card opened up a whole new world to me. But, of course, I came to find out that it wasn't as rosy as I thought. But at the time, it seemed like such a grown-up thing to do, having these credit cards in your wallet. By my mid-20s, I had several credit cards, and I could barely make the minimum payments on them. I was using credit to buy gas and groceries. By 30, my credit was wrecked. I couldn't get approved for anything, and it took me years to fix the damage. Do I blame a lack of financial literacy on this as well? Yes. Our parents didn't deal with this. My parents had a mortgage, a car loan, and a Sears credit card that they used just to buy a new washing machine if the old one broke, or a new refrigerator. And that was it. We, on the other hand, we were handed credit cards like they were candy, with zero education on how to handle them responsibly, and not really any examples to show us the dark side of credit either. So by the time I finally got out of credit card debt, I was years behind on saving for my retirement. And I know I wasn't alone, because this was the financial reality of an entire generation, my generation. Okay, point number 4 that I want to make is bye-bye pensions. Remember when a job meant security for life? Pensions were the reason for that. Work at the same company for decades, retire, and receive a monthly check for the rest of your life. But by the time we entered the workforce, that deal was disappearing fast. And whether it was for better or for worse, the transition was abrupt, it was final, and the new 401k could give us no past historical reference to model by. Corporations saw pensions as a huge money drain, so they phased them out, replaced them with 401ks, shifting the financial risk and responsibility upon us. Suddenly, your retirement wasn't something that your employer guaranteed. You had to figure it out yourself. Now, pensions gave people security, but it was at a cost. I mean, many people stayed in jobs they hated for fear of losing their pension. But for Gen X, that choice was gone. We had freedom, but at the cost of financial uncertainty. With a pension, you never had to worry about outliving your money. With a 401k, we're constantly asking ourselves, do we have enough? Will my savings last? What if I run out before I die? No one handed us a playbook for this. And also, another common modern-day retirement problem is, how do I create a monthly paycheck out of this huge 401k balance? Now, 401ks were supposed to be great because they were portable, that you didn't have to stay with one job all your life. But for me, they were too easy to cash out. Every time I changed jobs, I saw my 401k as an emergency fund. I would tell myself, I need this to buy a car. I need this to pay off my credit card debt. And just like that, I was back at square one. So yes, we can point out the disadvantages of pensions, but there are definite pros. And these advantages weren't replaced when 401ks came along. Okay, my 5th point is the student loan trap. At 18, I walked into a bank, filled out a whole lot of forms, and I walked out with thousands of dollars at my disposal in the form of a student loan. Gen X was the first generation to step into a whole new world of financial burden. Now, I attended a state university, so tuition was supposed to be affordable. But even with my part-time job at Kmart at the time, there was no way I could come close to covering all of it. And no, my parents didn't offer to pay for my college education. and it never even occurred to me to expect or ask them to. And I realize that Gen X isn't the hardest hit generation when it comes to student loans. That would probably belong to the millennials, because higher education has more than tripled in the last few decades. But once again, Gen X was poised to be confronted with a whole new way of adulting, one that our previous generations had no experience with. At 18, we were signing our names on student loans and credit cards like it was nothing. We had no idea we were locking ourselves into years of financial stress. Thinking about it now, it actually seems crazy to me at how normal it seemed at the time. So when financial gurus talk about how you should be saving for your retirement starting in your 20s, you can be a millionaire by the time you're 40, I get a little sad, and I have a little bit of regret that I didn't do it that way. I wasn't saving anything in my 20s and 30s. I was just trying to survive, paycheck to paycheck. Now, as a bonus point, I want to include something else. It didn't originate in the 80s as the previous 5 points did, but it was something that hit Gen X particularly hard, and that was the 2008 housing and financial crisis. The 2008 crash wiped out nearly 40% of Gen X's wealth overnight. For many of us, it felt like years of progress had suddenly just vanished. I remember logging into my 401k account at the time, and my heart just kind of sunk. But all I could do was just stare at the balance that was almost half of what it had been a week before. But what could I do about it? Friends of mine had just bought new homes. They thought they were making the right financial investment. Then bam, their home values plummeted by 30%. Suddenly, they owed way more on their homes than they were worth. And there were no desirable ways to get out of it. Some of us experienced lost jobs, layoffs, reduced hours, reduced salaries. During that time, I remember how everyone had constant job insecurities. Yet I do want to add, despite all of this, losing homes, retirement savings, jobs, Gen X did bounce back. In fact, we're the only generation that has fully recovered from the financial losses of 2008. Now, if that's not resilience, I don't know what is. Now, when people wonder why Gen X is so behind in their retirement, they just assume that we didn't plan well. But as you can see, there was so much for us to have to navigate without a clear compass. But here's what makes Gen X different. We've always been adaptable. We didn't get a roadmap for retirement. We had to figure it out on our own. And you know what? We had to figure it out for the generations that came after us as well. And despite all that was stacked against us, we're still standing. That's what sets us apart. And it's not too late to take control of your financial future, even if you feel left behind. It's not about how you start the race, it's how you finish. In part 2, I'm going to cover how Gen Xers are currently sabotaging their retirement. In the first video in this series, I laid out a lot of the things that us Gen Xers were hit with just as we were starting out our young adult lives. But our troubles with saving and planning for our retirement didn't end in our 20s. There are still quite a few obstacles today that we're dealing with, and I'm going to go over 5 of those in this video today. And I'll admit up front that number 4 is the one I struggle with the most. Okay, one of the ways we're sabotaging our retirement today is that a lot of Gen Xers are buried in debt. So let's talk numbers. The average Gen Xer is $157,000 in debt. Now we lead all other generations in outstanding debts. And this could include mortgages, student loans, credit cards, medical debt, car loans. And the problem is that we've always been taught from a young age that debt is normal. Remember what I was talking about in part 1 about Discover and Visa? They were handing out credit cards like candy to us when we were 18 years old. Now, every time in my past that I've had credit card debt, it's just this huge weight on my shoulders. And I know it is for anyone else as well. Even when I thought I was managing my debt well, it still was something that never left my mind. It felt like a ball and chain. But many are still stuck in this debt cycle, and it's really hard to claw your way out of it. And currently, credit cards are running an average APR of 22%. Credit card companies are making a ton of money off of people that carry balances, and they get richer while we get further and further behind. If you're still carrying high interest debts, that should be your priority number 1, getting that paid off. Your future self will thank you for that. Okay, the second way that we're sabotaging our retirement is that a lot of Gen Xers are neglecting their health, and it's going to cost us. Now, here's something I didn't fully grasp until I was in my 50s. Retirement isn't only about how much money you've saved. It's also about having the health to enjoy it. And here's an alarming stat that I came across while researching this article, and it's that Gen X is the least health-conscious generation out there. How many of us are prioritizing fitness and nutrition and preventative care? Now, I'll be honest, I was raised on junk food, and I struggled for years to eat healthier. And I still love, ice cream and potato chips. Those are probably my 2 favorite treats. And I'd be lying if I said that I didn't eat those still. And here's the tricky part, that even when we think we're eating healthy, we might not be. Grocery store shelves are full of products that make health claims, but could actually just be dessert in disguise. Instant oatmeal loaded with sugar. Flavored yogurts, they're practically milkshakes. And granola bars, most of them are candy bars in disguise. Even just making one small change, like reducing your sugar intake at breakfast, that can reset your blood sugar for the entire day in a good way. And let's talk about healthcare costs. Have you looked at those lately? And as we age, the costs are more than likely only going to continue to increase. Now, here's the truth. Neglecting our health can wipe out our retirement savings faster than any overspending could. I just did a video about this very thing just a couple of weeks ago. We have to stop treating health as optional, because in our 70s, we're either paying for a gym membership and nutritious food, or we're paying for hospital bills and medications. Okay, the third way that we're sabotaging our retirement is that many Gen Xers are supporting their adult kids at their own expense. Now, this one is tough. Gen X was raised with an independent mindset. We've been called latchkey kids, and even the term feral kids has been floating around a lot lately. Yet that isn't how we raised our kids. Was it because we resented the way that we were raised? Is it because the world is a much more dangerous and expensive place to live? Regardless, here's the question that we all need to ask. Can you support your adult kids and still have a comfortable retirement fund? If the answer is yes, great. Keep doing what makes you happy. But if you're sacrificing your financial future for theirs, ask yourself this question. When you're too old to work, will they be able and willing to step in and support you financially? And here's another piece of information that I came across. Gen Zs and millennials are saving at a much higher rate for their retirement than we ever did. Now, I know this isn't the case for everyone, but if our adult kids are managing to put enough away for retirement, they may not need our financial support after all. I'm just saying. Now, I get it. No one wants to see their kids struggle. Now, I remember in my 20s when I was really struggling, I would call home to mom and, beg and plead for her to, send me some money, and I would lay it on thick, but it rarely ever worked. Now, do I hate my mom today for her, for not helping me out when I was begging and pleading with her? No, it helped me learn and grow from the mistakes that I'd made. So if we're sacrificing our older selves by not setting up some financial boundaries with our kids, then we're setting ourselves up to struggle in the future. And do you think your kids will be happy knowing that you're suffering in your 70s and 80s because of this? Now, it's one thing to help them when they truly need it, but it's another when you sacrifice your retirement when they're doing okay. Okay, the fourth way that we're sabotaging our retirement is that Gen Xers are spending more than any other generation. Now, currently, Gen X earns the most out of all generations, but we're also spending the most. And not just on necessities. We're leading in spending on eating out, entertainment, travel, pets, clothing. And honestly, spending hits a little close to home for me. We're being marketed to every minute of every day. And we're even told that our economy depends on us spending ourselves into oblivion. Now, I tell myself that my spending is okay because I'm putting around 20% of my salary into my retirement savings. And I'll justify it by saying, hey, my life is really stressful right now. I need to blow off some steam by spending some money. But then I ask myself, what if I could be saving more rather than making Jeff Bezos richer? What if I had enough cash ready to buy a new car when my current car dies and to be able to buy it without having to get another loan? What if I could retire a year earlier by just cutting out some of the spending I'm doing now? What if the money that I just mindlessly spend could be used to be more generous and to give to others? I'm not saying we shouldn't enjoy life, but I am saying that our spending should reflect our goals and what we value most in life. And the fifth way that we're sabotaging our retirement is that some Gen Xers are still delaying retirement planning. And this could be the biggest mistake of all. A lot of Gen Xers put off investing in their 40s or 50s, saying, I'll just catch up later. The problem is that later comes really fast, especially at this age, it seems. Now it's time to wake up. We don't have the early morning anymore. That's in the rearview mirror. We're in the afternoon of life now, and that means there's no more time to put these things off. Now, if I could go back in time, I'd tell my 30-year-old self to start saving now. And if you're in the same boat, it's not too late. The best time to start was 30 years ago. The next best time to start is today. Now, the good news is that every mistake that I just mentioned, every single one of them, they're fixable. Debt, start paying it down now. Get laser focused on it. Health, prioritize it before it becomes a problem. Be proactive instead of reactive. Supporting adult kids, set financial boundaries and stick to them even when it's hard. Overspending, make sure your spending aligns with your goals. And delayed investing, start today. Now, if you see yourself in any of these, I know it's hard. I've been there. I know exactly what it's like. But the longer we wait to deal with it, the harder it gets. You can start making those changes today, and in 5 years, you could be astonished at how much progress you've made. Okay, so there's the retirement we expected versus the reality we're facing. This is the third part of my series on Gen X's long, frustrating road to retirement bliss. In the first video, I talked about how the system had let us down in multiple ways. In the second video, I covered the problems that we're facing today. And in this one, I've got 5 problems that we need to pay attention to because retirement is changing whether we like it or not. Okay, first one on the list is housing costs may force us to look into different living arrangements than we have in the past. Okay, first, I believe that multi-generational homes, multi-generational living is going to become more common. I think a lot of retirees may have to rent in retirement. I think the McMansion American dream is dying. I just think we need to stay open-minded because I don't know when the current housing situation is going to straighten itself out. Okay, number 2 on the list is I feel that full retirement is a luxury that many of us aren't going to be able to afford. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's just take a look at some of the other generations. Our parents' generation, most of them had pensions. Baby boomers, I think that they've kind of skirted, gotten into retirement before things got really complicated. Millennials, they've still got time to save more. They can see, the horizon, if they're smart. And a lot of these problems that, we're facing today can maybe, hopefully, fix themselves by the time they're faced with retirement. But once again, here, Gen X is kind of in the middle of a lot of different things that are going on. The housing crisis, the inflation, Social Security, rumors, that kind of thing. So I think that a lot of Gen Xers, they're going to have some kind of income stream coming in, and retirement will probably be more like a transition. It won't be just a hard stop where one day you're working, they throw you a retirement party, and then the next day, you're retired for the rest of your life. I think if you're in your 50s now, one of the best things you could probably do for your future self is start thinking and start developing a second income stream. Something, whether it's, a hobby that you have or rental properties or, different things like that. But I just don't think for Gen Xers that retirement is going to be, a 30-year vacation unless we have saved, a lot of money. Okay, the third problem that Gen Xers are going to face is that Social Security is not going to be enough. Even if it does manage to stick around in its current condition. So in my first video, I laid out 5 ways that Gen X had been let down by the abrupt transition to the current financial system, mostly what we know today. Now, a few things have been worked out over the past 40 years, but look at us today. What is the current rumor with Social Security? They're saying that it's going to run out of funds by the year 2035. Now, I know there's a lot of different thoughts on this. There are things that, can be done. I don't think it's really being discussed with our government. It doesn't seem to be a priority. But the year 2035, that's going to put Gen Xers between the ages of 55 and 70, which is just right at the cusp, and for the older ones, in retirement time. So once again, Gen X gets delivered some bad news when it comes to retirement. Now, I can't see the future. I don't really know what's going to happen to Social Security, and maybe we're far enough, down the line that if they do make some really big cuts, maybe they won't affect us. It's really hard to say. But let's say it does survive. There aren't any cuts that our generation has to face, and the average Social Security check today is $1,800. Now that's not enough for most retirees to live on. Now what can we do? Well, there's only, a couple of things you can do. It's save, save, save. I mean, just save as much as you can, or delay benefits as long as possible. I mean, you have the option of delaying benefits up until age 70, and that could be something that does change. That age could be pushed up even further. Okay, so what's the fourth problem that I see in Gen X's retirement future that we need to be paying attention to? Well, that's retirement healthcare costs. I mean, medical costs are skyrocketing. I mean, this is going to be a huge problem. I mean, no matter how healthy we are aging, and the older you get, the more medical care you tend to receive. Medicare, that'll kick in for us at 65, or at least that's the rule right now. I mean, will it be the same by then? Will there be major cuts to it? Will the premiums, skyrocket for it? Because we know there are problems, budget problems with Medicare as well. And I don't even really have an answer for this one. I mean, we're all pretty much just at the mercy of our healthcare system. Everybody needs it at some point in their lives. Now, I've experienced the healthcare system through my mom, taking care of her. She's experienced a few falls over the last several years. The emergency rooms and the hospitals, they're becoming scary places. Standards seem to be getting lower and lower. Wait times in the emergency room. I mean, I could give you lots of stories of, what I've experienced and what other people have experienced. The staff shortages are real. The stress on the existing staff, from administrative, people to the doctors, it's real and it's palpable and you can feel it. Communication has suffered in the last, several years. It's not a place that you're going to want to go. I have learned that. And I don't want to, trash on our healthcare system because, as I say, I know that there is a lot of pressure going on right now with our healthcare workers, and I am very thankful for them. But I know that the situation is far from ideal. Now, on top of all of this, we've got the fact that healthcare costs are almost, impossible to manage. And as I say, I don't really have an answer for this one. Let's just hope that things can improve as we get older. Now, Medicare currently covers a lot of those healthcare expenses that you're bound to incur after the age of 65. And I hope that a lot of things don't change too much, on our end of it regarding, premiums and the coverage that it offers. And the fifth challenge that I see Gen X facing is that aging won't necessarily mean slowing down. It'll mean remaining functional so that we can keep working. Now, in one of the other points, I mentioned how retirement is probably going to be more like a transition where a lot of us are going to continue to work in some form or fashion. But all of that is dependent on the fact that we're healthy enough that we can continue to work. A lot of us are just not as active as we used to be when we were a lot younger, and that's going to cost us. If we lose muscle and mobility, then we lose independence. Strength training, functional fitness, staying active, I don't see those as optional. I see them almost as survival tactics. And I see this too, I see it happening already today, but I know it's going to get more intense, especially for our generation. There's going to be, anti-aging gimmicks and longevity supplements, things they're going to push. Just don't fall for all of the hype. Just eat good food and try to stay active. Now, in this series, I've covered a lot of things that Gen X has had to face, in our past, in the present today, and in our future. But we've been put in this unique position to adapt. And pretty much we've been left to test it out, figure it out, and live it out in ways I don't think any other generation before or after us has had to endure. So let me know in the comments what you think retirement is going to look like for us. It's getting really close. I know you've thought about it. I love making videos that cater to the topics that our generation is facing today. And some of them are good things and some of them are challenging things, but I like to cover them all. So I would love for you to subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope you have a great week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.